All right, the project for today, we're going to install the Sasquatch Fender Flare on this 1983 Jeep Wagoneer. You can get your set of Fender Flares at BJ's Off-Road. All right, we're going to show you the tools to use when installing the Sasquatch Fender Flares. The first things you're going to use, you're going to start with a tape measure. You need a pen to make your marks to start with, and we use this tape. This tape's about 1 inch wide, and that's the size you should use when making your tape marks. And then we use the Sawzall to make our cuts. And after the cutting, we use the channel lock pliers to help bend the metal. We used a couple of hammers to help us flatten out the spots where the metal had been cut and folded or bent. And then we used, the manufacturer recommends just using the screws that come in your kit to just let them do self-tapping. We drilled some pilot holes when we did ours. So we used the drill, and then we had a cordless to help us put the screws in. First thing we're going to be doing is taking some measurements and making some marks on our fender, because we're going to have to make some cuts. Alright, so the first step to putting on this fender flare, we have to take a measurement and make a mark where we're going to start. So we're going to start down here at the bottom of the fender. You can see that there are 2 bolts here that hold the fender onto the frame. And we're going to be taking a measurement and making a mark. So the measurement we're going to start at the bottom of the fender and where this crease is. And we're going to come up to the first ridge on the body. So the fender is flat on the bottom, and then it makes an angle turn going upward. So we're going to measure on that crease. So we're going to measure from the edge, back edge here of the fender, over. And we made a mark at 3 3/4 inch. That's our yellow mark right there. 3 3/4 inch. That mark becomes a place where we're going to start our tape line. What we're going to be doing, we have to take out the back, furthest bolt back all the way out. So sometimes these can be rusted or really dirty. Right now would be a good time to spray it while you're making your tape line so it can sit and work. So we're going to take a little piece of tape where our mark is, yellow mark there, and we're going to make a straight line from this mark straight back on the bottom of the fender. So we're going to put this edge towards the mark. Now we're gonna get another piece of tape. We're gonna start it down here in this mark. We're paying attention to which side of the tape we're putting against the mark. We're gonna go on we're gonna stay away from the wheel side of the line. We're gonna stay on the door side of the line. We're just gonna put our thumb or finger, something on that point. Then the rest of the tape, we're going to be coming up. All we're going to do is put this piece of tape on the edge of the fender up here. So as soon as that tape gets close to the edge, we're going to touch it. Might take a couple tries, but you'll get it. Okay, so just so it touches the top edge of the fender there. So the bottom of the tape is at the mark that we made at the point, and it just makes just a straight line all the way up to the edge of the fender, on the bottom side of the fender and the wheel well. So that's the first step. After you get the tape line on it, it will be easier to take this tire off. So we'll remove the wheel so we can get a better look and better angle of what we're doing. All right, we found it to be helpful to have the vehicle up off the ground as much as you can, as much as possible. So we're going to take this front wheel off. We have already put the Jeep up on jack stands, so we're up off the ground a little bit. Okay, we're going to explain where we're going to make some cuts on this fender. This tape line is a guide. We're going to be cutting up to the tape line. So we're going to start down here at the bottom of the fender, and it's flat on the bottom and it comes to your first ridge line. We're going to be cutting on that ridge line from back here to the tape, and then we'll stop. We're going to come back. There's another ridge line right in this area. You can feel it as you run your finger over it. We're going to cut down that ridge line to the tape line and stop. And then there's a third ridge line we're going to cut into and stop at the tape line, and there's a little valley line we're going to cut into the tape line. This little piece that's created with these two cuts is going to be cut off and eliminated. Then the next, we'll make a little cut up a little higher. What we have going on here is, you can see in this fender, well, there's a little bump out of the metal right here. Behind this bump out, there's a brace behind it. So we don't want to cut the brace. It's okay, we'll be able to bend this, but we don't want to cut this. So we're going to make a cut line above where that brace is, or above this bump line. And it can just be anywhere just above, doesn't have to be exact. So we're going to cut into the fender here and cut up to the tape line and then stop. And the rest of it's going to be, we're going to bend. The tape line actually becomes a place where the wheel well gets, or the fender gets bent in. So we'll create a new open space. So that's just a little bit about what we're going to do with the cuts in the tape line. Okay, so we've put the tape on the back side of the fender. We're going to show you where to put the tape on the front side of the fender. So basically we're going to start at the bottom where this bolt is, this bolt head. We're going to put a piece of tape on the wheel side of the bolt head. Doesn't have to be exact, there's no measurement needed, just on that side. And then we're going to run the tape up along the fender here up to this seam. There are three ridge lines here. There's a ridge line right here. We'll call number 1. This is a ridge line number 2, and then there's a line 3 that's a valley point. So we're going to put the tape up to the valley. So we're going to take the tape. We're going to start down under the bolt head. We're just going to put it fairly close to the bolt head. Doesn't have to be exact. Don't put it on the bolt head, just up to it. And then this tape line is going to come up. And we're going to mark where the valley is, or the body line, that's the valley. So you've got to this body line 1, body line 2, and then the valley's body line 3. And we're just going to mark where that valley line is. So this piece of the metal, we're going to use a Sawzall. We're going to cut the seam up to the tape. Then we're going to take the Sawzall and come up from the bottom. We're going to saw next to that tape line all the way up, and this piece is going to get deleted. And then the next step will be, we're going to make some cuts into the tape to make it easier to bend this into the vehicle. So we'll make some cuts, and we're going to stop at the back edge of the tape. There aren't a certain number of cuts that you have to make. It's just whatever is going to make it easiest to bend the metal back. Okay. Okay, I've cut to the tape there. this piece of the front fender needs to be cut. It needs to be bent back. The back line of the tape is the bend point, so we're going to bend this back. So we're going to make some cuts to make this easier to bend. So we're going to make the cuts where the fender actually bends, the bend points. So there's a bend point right here just above this bolt head, so we'll stay above the bolt head. Then you follow this tape line up, there's a bump out in the body, so we'll cut just below the bump out, cut just above the bump out, and it'll make it easier to bend these pieces in. So that's what we're going to do. Just to the back of the tape line. See if I can do this. That's probably okay. Yeah. Now, wait a minute. We're gonna need to cut. We're gonna need to cut up this one too, right? Mm-hmm. The seam all the way to the back of the tape. Yep. Off so I can see it. Gotta cut to the back. Alright. Next step, we want to save this front piece. We don't want to cut this angle or this triangular piece off. We're going to use it to screw into, but we're going to cut this back piece off. We're going to cut from just basically a straight line from the back of this corner all the way forward to the front side of the body, the front side of the fender, and we'll stop, and then we'll just make a cut upward or downward up to that point. So this piece will get deleted on the underside, just the front side will stay on. This works. Hold on.
Yeah, we're just bending straight out.
Grab with our pair of vice grips or something, or channel locks. Coming up towards you. Okay. Okay. Doesn't that be perfect? Okay, so this piece came from here. It was held on like this. We just cut over to the front of the fender and then cut up from the bottom. Actually made it easier to flatten this out straight out. And then we had Skylar hold it and I cut through it. It came off. We don't need that part now. Okay. We're going to use some channel locks to make the bends. Metal is sharp, so just be aware. So let's make a, so basically we want to come straight across the seam, right? And bend it.
Yeah.
So this may need to get bent a little bit or cut. Just trying to eyeball it straight across a line, fairly straight across, so we can make a bend there. Okay, that's good enough. There's a ridge here where this fender comes out, so we're gonna make it cut up to the back of the tape to make it easier to bend these pieces back, because all this gets bit back underneath. So we can use it to screw onto. I think I want to cut this piece too.
Can you just bend that piece out first, bend the other stuff up, and then bend it back again?
This one?
Yeah.
Maybe so. We can try that. Alright, so I'll make the cut on this body line. Make sure there's nothing behind.
Camera out of your way.
Yeah, you see. So cut on the body line. So I think, yeah, maybe we'll bend this. There's a small piece of fender underneath here. The wheel well, I'll just bend it out. There's a small piece here too. I'll just bend that out flat. And
So before you start bending,
there's a small piece here too. Just gonna bend it out flat. Again, this is not an exact science, it's just make it look fairly straight across. So I'm gonna be bending this where the tape is. The tape's, anything below the tape is gonna be bent up to the top tape line. So I'm gonna use the channel locks, reach up as high as I can to that tape line and just start bending it back. Hopefully just create a fairly straight line. I'm starting with this back piece first, because they will overlap. And I'll do the same with this front piece. And I may not get exactly, oh, that's pretty good there. Bend it there. Go on the other side of this triangle. Okay, so to make this a little flatter, we might just take a hammer to it. Back to the pliers. And then this piece, we're gonna bend back up this way. Okay, take the tape off now. Let's see what's going on. Alright, so I'm just going to take a hammer, kind of tap on this, make it as flat as possible. Not perfect. I need a piece of metal behind this. Let's see. Yeah, I might even be able to cut that off. You know.
it's gonna be hidden anyways.
Yeah, it will be hidden. Oh, there we go. Just straighten it out that way. Where we feel like you need to be able to flatten out. Okay, it all gets hidden. These pieces are going to get used. screw onto. That's about it. Tear that off later.
Again, we're just using this front edge of the tape line. It's going to be our bend point on the front edge of the fender where we did our bends. We used the back edge of the tape line for our bend, but we're working on the back side of the fender for this one, and we're doing it differently. We're using the front edge to bend up to. So pay attention, we do it differently on each one. So when you get down to this piece right here, this is where the ridge and valley of these body lines right here, that piece of metal that connects the valley to the ridge, we can actually just trim that and delete that piece. So I'm going to use the Sawzall to do that. Alright, so your whole goal in folding this back is you're just trying to create a flat surface on the bottom edge here, because you're going to be attaching a few screws that are holding the fender flare on. So just get it as best you can. The fender flare is going to hide all of this. You just have to create a flat spot to attach your screws. So just work it. Later on, once you get the fender flare installed, if you see any little bumps in the plastic, like it looks like the metal is pushing out on the fender flare, you can take the fender flare back off, just work the metal in a little bit more, put your fender flare back on, and then just see if there are any other high spots that need to be smoothed out. So it doesn't have to be pretty, just need to get it as flat as possible to make the fender flare sit flat, and then give yourself attachment points to put your screws in. Done cutting on this one now, got everything folded in. and we can go ahead and pull the tape off.
So now we're gonna dry fit the front fender flare, and the first thing I need to do, I need to take out the back bolt. There's two bolts holding this fender, the fender on the Jeep. We're gonna take out the one closest to the door. I'm gonna use an impact or a driver. It's a 1/2 inch, I believe. All right, watch your eyes. We're gonna get some dirt. Make sure I'm on reverse, yep. And there it is. So, front fender flare, it's gonna sit like that. It will only use 6 screws instead of 8, and it will use one bolt, the bolt that we took out of the fender. And just remember, don't put the rubber trim piece on yet. Fit it to the Jeep first and drill your holes. We're gonna attach the bolt first to this bottom. There's a hole in the bottom of the front fender flare. We're going to attach the bolt through there and in through the body here, through the fender. So, put this in by hand first. Get it started, and it is dirty. So you might want to clean that before you put yours on. To the body, I think. Okay. So, front bolt's in. And then we'll go from the back end of the fender flare and we'll put the front screw in. So, we'll drill a hole first. Skylar, hold us up here. We need to push the fender flare in as close to the Jeep as possible. Put some pressure on it. Make sure it's in as far as it could possibly be. You got that? Push in up here. Okay. It looks like it moved. You good there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
It looks good up there. I'm touching the back.
And the front too?
I can't.
Yep, I think you are.
Okay.
I don't. Yep, it's touching. Okay, going in. All right, let's go in here. Okay, that's in. Just make sure it's pushed to the Jeep and just throw some more pile holes. You good? Mm-hmm. All right, last hole. So this last hole is going to attach to one of those flanges we bent up. I can definitely hold it with my hand, so I'm going to pull against it a little bit. There we go. So last screw.